So here in the United States, with the current new administration, they're talking about removing fluoride out of the drinking water in the United States. Now, fluoride has been linked a long time to a lot of serious health conditions, and some wonder why are they really putting fluoride in the water? Is it really because it's good for our teeth, or is there something more sinister going on? Well, recently I found out that fluoride in the drinking water in the United States, it's the least of some of the sinister things that are being done to the American people. So recently I've taken a trip to the UK. I've never left the country, so this was my first time leaving the country. And when I was in the United Kingdom, one of the things that I wanted to see was Stonehenge. But Stonehenge ended up not being the thing that was most interesting about this trip. The most interesting thing about this trip is when I found out that many food items and ingredients that we have in the United States are banned in the United Kingdom. So the question is why? Why would another country ban so many US products? So the backstory is that I went to London and I went out to eat with a friend of mine. And the first thing that I noticed was that this plain piece of chicken, right, just roasted chicken, it tasted extremely well. I mean, it was one of the best piece of chicken I've ever tasted. And it was just plain roasted chicken there. It wasn't even much on it. So then even the French fries, which I assume were deep fried, I think they were baked, but they were incredible. And I just found it fascinating how good the food actually was. So then, as I was amazed at how well the food tasted, my friend of mine, the friend I was with, she mentioned how much she likes drinking Coke as occasional treat, not too much. So as she was talking about liking the soda Coca-Cola, I had mentioned to her, oh yeah, but it has high fructose corn syrup in it and it's really toxic. So I was telling her about Mexican cola, which some in the United States are aware of Mexican cola, which is Coca-Cola with cane sugar. So as I was explaining to her, well, you got to try this Mexican cola because it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup in it. So she didn't know what I was talking about. So when she looked up the Mexican cola and couldn't find it in the UK, she ended up coming across this article saying, oh, well, people in the UK, they don't need to worry about buying Mexican Coke because in the UK, they don't use high fructose corn syrup. They use regular sugar for all their soda. So that was interesting to me. It was a shock to me. So I ended up getting a can of cherry Coke and I checked the ingredients for myself. And the picture of me holding this up is not that clear, but you can kind of see it's kind of blurry, but you can see in the ingredients it says sugar. So they don't even use high fructose corn syrup. So there's no need, they don't need to make a big deal about buying specialty sodas that are using natural sugar or cane sugar. So anyway, when I tasted this cherry Coke, it was the best tasting cherry Coke that I've ever had. And I'm sure it has to do with the fact that it was made with real sugar and not high fructose corn syrup. So I went to the grocery store in London and I'm fascinated by looking at the ingredient list of all these things that I would actually buy in America. And sure enough, that the same regular soda, the cheap soda that we have in the US, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all those regular cans of soda, None of them use high fructose corn syrup. They only use real sugar. And it tasted better. I've actually tasted it. So then I started to wonder also why the food tasted so good. So then when I did further research where I was in the UK, I came across some very disturbing information that so on the right side, it's a random stock picture of somebody in America holding up a can of cherry Coke. And as you can see, high fructose corn syrup. And none of the sodas in the UK I could find high fructose corn syrup on. All the same cheap sodas that we have in the US, Coca-Cola, Sprite, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, all those sodas are made with real sugar, but it's the same brand. So I thought, why would these companies go out of their way to put real sugar in UK products, or should I say EU products, but in America we get the cheap high fructose corn syrup? Now, before I move on to the disturbing thing about the food, if you look up this whole thing with high fructose corn syrup in Europe, just notice what this quick Google search says about it. It says, contrary to common opinion, high fructose corn syrup isn't banned in Europe. So this particular article is making it clear that, oh, it's not banned in Europe, because if it was banned in Europe, that might raise some concerns with Americans. But the end of this paragraph, it says that use of high fructose corn syrup is restricted because it's under a production quota. So what this information is claiming is that there's nothing wrong with high fructose corn syrup. It's not banned because it's toxic. It's just because of some production quota. Now, here's an article on livestrong.com. And notice what because it gets into more about this so-called production quota. It says, many people have misconceptions about regulations concerning high fructose corn syrup and European Union or EU, contrary to common opinion. High fructose corn syrup isn't banned in Europe. Referred to glucose or glucose fructose syrup in this region. Use of high fructose corn syrup is restricted because it's under a production quota. So I don't know anything about production quotas as far as manufacturing stuff like high fructose corn syrup or sugar, but this just doesn't sound truthful to me, right? What this sounds like, and I'm just speculating, right? Maybe it really is some production quota that's important, but it sounds like some lobbyists have paid for this information, or not, I wouldn't say paid for this information, but it sounds like some lobbyists have been able to maybe use this production quota or something as an excuse to try to say there's nothing wrong with high fructose corn syrup, is because I mean I don't know how this stuff works, but it just doesn't sound right to me. Now, in the next paragraph, it says where I've highlighted is not real. It is not related to health concerns many public health authorities have regarding of high fructose corn syrup. So they're acknowledging there's a lot of health concerns with high fructose corn syrup, but at the same time they're acknowledging these problems with high fructose corn syrup. They're claiming that that has nothing to do with why they don't use it in the UK or the European Union countries. So it isn't just soda. So here's another example of the difference between American products and United Kingdom products. So this is Heinz ketchup, right? It's the same company, but when they manufacture it for Americans, this is what the ingredient list says. It says tomato concentrate, distilled vinegar, high fructose corn syrup, and corn syrup. So you're getting a double dose of these corn syrups, salt, spice, onion powder, and natural flavoring. Now, the UK version simply says tomatoes, right? Not from concentrate, but tomatoes, spirit vinegar, sugar, salt, spice, and herb extracts and spice. Now, not only are they not using high fructose corn syrup, but you notice it's not saying natural flavoring either. You see, natural flavoring is one of these things that it can be very misleading. It could be good, but it also could be bad, right? I mean, if somebody took horse manure and put it in a food ingredient, they could call horse manure natural flavoring, right? Because all natural flavoring means is that it's not something genetically engineered. It's not artificial flavor. But again, so horse manure would be natural flavoring, right? So when it says natural flavoring, that's not always necessarily means that it's something good. So whatever it is natural flavoring is, that it's in the US ketchup. The UK doesn't seem to want that natural flavoring in their ketchup, whatever whatever it actually is. But just look at the difference of the size of the ingredient list. Well, why is that? So I want to get to what I think is the far more darker stuff on what's being done to food in the United States. So this is an article that I found on thewellnesswatchdog.com. And I'm going to just scroll down this, but you notice the title right away. It says 15 foods banned in Europe, but legal in the US. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just going to scroll down and I'm just going to make a couple of points. But I want everybody to do their own research on all of these food products, especially the food products that you consume. So if we scroll down, okay, so right at the start, the 15 American foods banned in Europe. So Twinkies are banned in Europe. Classic junk food, classic poison, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils are bad, but it's the yellow five that signed the death warrant on Twinkies. The UA requires warning labels on dyes, but Austria, Finland, and Norway have banned this snack. Right. So it's saying that the UA is saying that there at least has to be warning labels, but those countries flat out banned it. So in those countries, Twinkies are banned from the country. Now I want to make this clear. I'm not trying to say that I don't love America, right? Every country's got their good things. So I'm glad that we in America have more rights than a lot of countries. So, I mean, hey, we do have the right to eat Twinkies if we want, right? I mean, we could buy Twinkies by the pallet load. We can go into Costco's and buy a whole pallet of Twinkies if we want to. So I'm just saying I do appreciate the fact that we have freedom such as we can buy Twinkies, but it's kind of disturbing to think that Twinkies are banned, right? That whatever's in these Twinkies is so toxic that other countries are saying they're banned. You're not even allowed to have Twinkies in this country. Now, stovetop stuffing, what I just wanted to mention quick about that is that that is a Mandela effect for those who know what the Mandela effect is. I know for a fact that it was Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. Now they claim that it's always been Kraft stovetop stuffing. Well, Kraft stovetop stuffing, it doesn't even sound right. I remember the commercials for Stouffer stovetop that rhyme. So I'm not going to get into that in this video. That's a topic for another video. But I just want to make that point. It was Stouffer stovetop stuffing, not Kraft. But anyway, going back to these banned food items, U.S. pork. Then it says, ever heard of ractopamine? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's an animal feed additive that has been linked to several that has been linked to several major health issues in humans and animals. Right? So this ingredient that is in US pork, that I guess it's something that's in the feed for the US animals. But it's linked to serious health conditions, which is why these other countries are saying we don't even want US pork, right? It's banned. And we're eating US pork all the time. Well, I don't know. Should we be concerned with that ingredient, whatever that is, ractopamine? Or I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that exactly, but I mean, I don't know. So let's scroll down just to look at a couple more things. Farmed salmon. So farmed fish are raised in terrible conditions and fed a chemical cocktail of feed including methylmercury, dioxins, and antibiotics. Austria and New Zealand have banned farmed salmon. Now, the thing that's interesting about farmed salmon is that, and I'm guilty of this myself, so I would always like to get salmon in American restaurants, but just to make this clear that if you go out to eat at any restaurant, if the menu does not say wild caught salmon, it's farmed salmon. A lot of restaurants use farmed salmon because it's much cheaper than wild caught salmon. So just to put it out there, because I know sometimes people will eat salmon and think they're eating healthy because it's salmon, but if it's farmed raised, you're not eating healthy. It's very toxic. And here's another one, US milk, right? I mean, US milk, like just they banned US milk and Americans we drink milk all the time. Mountain Dew, that's interesting. So it isn't just a particular ingredient because the other sodas, they just say they don't want high fructose corn syrup in it. But this one is banned altogether. It's not just a matter of taking high fructose corn. Mountain Dew is banned. Now, one of the things that it says at the bottom, or let me just read what it says. It says, banned in Japan, the EU do use to contain brominated vegetable oil. Consuming Brahmin has been linked to headaches, memory loss, skin issues, and more. And then it says that PepsiCo said they were removing it in 2014, but it took 6 years to finally do so. So apparently, this type of vegetable oil is maybe not in Mountain Dew anymore. But when I was in the UK, I couldn't find Mountain Dew anywhere, right? So I think the soda's still banned, or they just don't want it. And then U.S. chicken. It says U.S. chicken is banned in the EU, and not just because it's washed with chlorine. The EU smartly asks, why does it need to be washed with chlorine in the first place? Right? So I don't know. I mean, I think they're talking about the same chlorine that sometimes is in tap water, but the chlorine that's in tap water, the tap water is not full of chlorine. There's chlorine added to it, which is obviously not good. But to wash it in pure chlorine, again, why is it being washed in chlorine? I mean, these are things that I never really even really understood. But these other countries, they don't even want US chicken. US chicken is banned, right? It's not allowed. And then the cereal Fruit Loops is also banned, but you see the way that Fruit Loops is spelled. I just want to make this clear too. This is another Mandela effect. So when I was younger, I was not good at spelling. I was terrible at spelling. So there's very few words that I could spell when I was younger. And fruit was one of them. And I know for a fact because Fruit Loops was a common cereal when I was a kid. And I mean, I grew up in the 1980s. And I can say for a fact that Fruit Loops, it was spelled like the letter, like a fruit, because this whole cereal is supposed to be fruit, right? The colors are bananas, grapes, strawberries. It's Fruit Loops. And it's a kid's cereal. So now they're claiming that it was always spelled like that. I mean, who spells fruit like that anyway? So that's just another Mandela effect. But again, topic for another video. So let's just scroll down. Okay, so health risk of consuming banned food. So it says high fructose corn syrup is another ingredient commonly used in processed foods that has been linked to obesity and diabetes due to its high sugar content. Now, this is not saying that it's banned, but it's under this list of banned stuff. So maybe it's not technically banned, but this is what I was saying earlier. right? So they're trying to say earlier, oh, it has nothing, it's not banned, it's just because of a production quota they don't use it. Well, it fits right on this list of toxic ingredients that make people sick. And how many Americans have diabetes and obesity, right? It seems like all these dialysis centers are being put up everywhere, right? So many Americans have diabetes. Well, I don't know. These other countries recognize that high fructose corn syrup is a link to diabetes, but America is still like it's put in American products, but these other countries don't want it. And we know that there's an obesity and diabetes pandemic or epidemic in the US. I don't know. And then it says studies suggest that high fructose corn syrup can cause an insulin spike when consumed, leading to increased fat storage around the midsection, as well as other negative health effects such as fatigue and inflammation. Right now, inflammation is the cause of a lot of illnesses because of inflammation. You can have so many health conditions that simply started just because of inflammation. And going back to what I was saying earlier, is that I'm not really buying that story about it's just because of production quota that high fructose corn syrup is not used in EU countries, right? Because again, like I said earlier, it sounds like something maybe just some lobbyists came up with to put that as the narrative so Americans don't get suspicious why they're being fed high fructose corn syrup and everything. I mean, even pasta sauce in America has high fructose corn syrup, like certain brands. So anyway, it fits right on this list of things that are toxic. So now scrolling down, okay, why are these foods legal in the US? The good question. The US food industry is a multi-billion dollar business, and it's no surprise that companies have been lobbying for years to keep certain foods legal in the US. And that's exactly what I was saying about that lame excuse about the production quota, why they don't use it in these EU countries. So basically what it's saying is that the food business is a multi-billion dollar business, and when they use all of these cheap toxic stuff that helps them preserve food and artificial flavoring and things like high fructose corn syrup as opposed to real sugar, they're making a lot of profit by using those toxic chemicals and those toxic preservatives where they can, sell more food. But not only is the food industry a multi-billion dollar business, I think cancer is a multi-dollar business in the US, right? And all these other health conditions, right? So you can see how big pharma plays its part too with all this stuff. So I want everybody to do their own research. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I didn't even know this information. I've heard it like many years ago. I've heard something about, there's certain products that are banned in other countries that we have in the US. I've heard stuff like that before, but I never really knew much about it, and I kind of forgot all about it. But the bottom line is this, is that I can just say from my own testimony, I went to the UK. I noticed the food tasted much better, and it wasn't just one restaurant, it was every restaurant. I've I've checked the ingredient list. I could see that they do not use high fructose corn syrup in all these main brand sodas that we have in the US. I tasted the difference with the cherry Coke. I tasted the difference with all the food that I ate there. So the question is why though? You see, if companies like Coca-Cola and Heinz ketchup, if these companies know that these ingredients are known to cause things like cancer and other issues, when they have to make special sodas and special condiments because they know that these countries are saying, no, we don't want these particular ingredients because they're obviously known health issues. When these companies know that they can't put these ingredients when they're manufacturing for these other countries because of these health concerns, that means they know that these health concerns are real. They know about it. So the question is, why are they poisoning Americans with these products? And just by coincidence, we have diabetes and cancer and all of these things that are rampant in the US. And another thing too, just to go along with this whole thing. So when I was also in the UK, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, and I'm not saying this to try to embarrass anybody or put anybody to the spot, but I'm just being honest and saying that there's almost I didn't see any obese person, like literally. And I was in downtown London, right? I'm not saying I didn't see people who were overweight, but there was nobody obese that I could see. In fact, when I was walking around, I was pretty much bigger than most of the people that I was around. And everybody seemed to be like slim. And I'm not, and again, so there's the occasional people that were like maybe my size or a little bigger than me, but there literally was, I mean, I'm downtown London, right? It's amazing. Like everybody just like, in simple terms, they weren't fat, right? And again, I'm not saying to be rude, but I'm saying that like, so I've seen the people, I've tasted the soda, I've tasted the meat. And one more quick story too is that so one day that someone that was in a group of people I was with, they had a taste for McDonald's, and I thought, oh no, like I was protesting. I don't want to go to like I'm thinking I'm loving the food here. Like I don't want to end up at McDonald's. McDonald's is the last place I want to go if I'm visiting somewhere out of the country. So anyway, this person really wanted to go to McDonald's, and I couldn't believe that I'm in London and they somehow drive me to McDonald's of all places. So at first I'm like, I'm not getting anything at McDonald's. And when I went to McDonald's, it wasn't even the same menu. Like so in the US, McDonald's has all these value bills, right? So you go in there, there's like a number one, number two, number like all these value bills. There was none of that. It seemed more like a Five Guys type of style restaurant where there was no value bills. It was just menu, it was just items on the menu. And some of the things on the menu were things that I never even seen at a McDonald's. So anyway, I ended up getting some they called mozzarella dippers. And I don't know if there's any US McDonald's that has mozzarella dippers or like mozzarella sticks, but anyway, so I decided, you know what, let me try that because I've never had that. And it was surprisingly good. And then I just thought, well, we know US milk is banned, right? And US cows are banned and all like that product from US cows. So maybe that's why the cheese tastes better too. I don't know. But that's just my testimony. So if you ever get a chance to go to the UK, I mean, taste it for yourself. Look at the products, taste the difference, and see how you feel after. So this is just my theory. And again, I'm only theorizing, right? It's just my opinion, and this is what I think because I can't figure it out. These multi-billion-dollar companies, if they know these products cause serious health concerns and obesity and cancer and all this stuff, and they know that put these products, they can't put these ingredients in these products in other countries because of these health concerns, and they obviously know that these products are very toxic or these ingredients are toxic. So this is my theory on it. The United States is a superpower country. Now, according to this list, it's saying the United States is the number one superpower country. So in the United States, I mean, everybody knows that, to be blunt, we know that the American military is tough, right? There's a reason that the United States is the world superpower. We have a strong military, and the fact that the citizens are also armed and can have guns also just makes the country in general a superpower country, not just the military. I mean, so what I think is that the fact these other countries, and again, I've tasted the difference, I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen all the people walking around downtown London and almost seen nobody obese. If these other countries are smart enough to know, hey, we do not want these products in our food because it's going to kill our citizens. It's going to make our people obese. It's going to cause an epidemic in diabetes, cancer. we don't want this toxic stuff in our food. The only thing that makes sense to me is that there's corrupt people in the United States government, obviously not all of them, which is why the new administration is going to be removing fluoride out of the water, which is a great thing to know that we have people who we can trust in office at this point. But there has to be some people in the United States government and in the United States food industry who maybe they're secretly working with other countries to basically defeat America mentally and physically, right? Maybe they figure that because the United States is the world superpower and we're like untouchable, that if they can weaken the American people by poisoning them with all this toxic food, then over time maybe they feel that the United States could be taken over. Right now, I hope that I mean I'm in America, so what I hope is that people stop eating this toxic stuff. But that's just the theory that I have. That some people in the United States have to be maybe working with some of these other countries to dumb down Americans and make Americans sick, right? To basically, in other words, dethrone America. Now, let me know if you have a better theory on why this is being done, but clearly somebody in the United States that has power is allowing this poison in our food when these other countries know this stuff is toxic. And I can't think of any other reason why they would do that besides wanting to hurt us on purpose, just like fluoride in the water, right? What do they say that fluoride is good for our teeth? So because fluoride is good for our teeth, they insist on dumping hazardous tanker trucks of fluoride into drinking water because it's good for our teeth. So I remember when I was in high school, my graduating year was 1998. And us high schoolers, like I thought we're pretty decent size and pretty healthy looking. When I see high school students now, they almost look like junior high school students. They don't like you can see that back in the 80s and 90s that children were stronger, teenagers were stronger, right? And now it's like, I mean, and then you have like ADHD and all these people ADHD and autism, and you got all these like illnesses and all this stuff. We didn't have all, I never even heard of ADHD when I was in high school. Right now, you got kids in elementary school that are being diagnosed with ADHD. So, if my theory is right that this is being done on purpose to dethrone America, well, we can see by the generation of people that it's a problem, right? Americans are getting more and more sick. And as Americans are getting more and more sick, these other countries are banning more and more American products. So let me know if you have another theory on why this is going on. But again, I do appreciate the fact that we do have rights in America, right? So we do have the right to eat Twinkies if we want. We can order Twinkies by the pallet load if that's what we want to do. But doesn't mean that we should do it and we should poison ourselves. So the purpose of this video is not to freak anybody out, but just be aware of what you're eating. And when it comes to eating meat, it may be best to go to a local rancher who is not washing their meat and chlorine and feeding them toxic antibiotics and other poisons. So for anyone who has not experienced maybe going to the UK and some of these other EU countries, I strongly recommend going to these other countries and testing it for yourself. And if you find that the food clearly tastes better, and if you see with your own eyes that the same toxin ingredients are not in the same products, if you see that the people generally look healthy and fit, then you just may want to consider what type of products you're consuming here in America.